Welcome to Eternal Journey, the podcast.
Greetings, all my knights and padawans. You are listening to the Eternal Journey, the podcast that talks about all things eternal with a focus on limited play. It's episode 82 of the podcast this week, and we are going to be doing a recap of the most recent draft championship. That isn't quite done yet, but that's right. Direwolf wanted to leave us in suspense, and we are perfectly okay with that, as we have two of the top competitors with us on the show this week to break down the experience and get their views on the current draft format from the best. But first, usually joining me on the line, my good friends, starting off with John. What is up?
Hey, Jedi. Hey, gang.
Next is our good, sweet, kind, draft-only 2-2 for 2 running player, Alex.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
Without further ado, our two guests. First off, a fellow streamer, drafter that just has a phenomenal win record and is actually in the top 8 of the draft championship. I want to welcome on the show EmoneyBags. What's up, friend?
Hey everybody. Hi Jedi, thanks for having me.
Pleasure. You are no rookie on the show, been on the show before. Definitely glad to have you back and planning on having you back again for a gauntlet breakdown later on. So thank you so much for being on the show. Next up, I have a good friend of mine and someone that is consistently making day 2 on competitive events, as well as always rocking the leaderboards in the draft format with her own smile. Well, welcome on the show, Celtic7Guardian. How you doing, friend?
Pretty well overall. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, thank you. Once we knew you made day 2, it was like, oh, yep, we're getting you on the show without a doubt. But before we dive into it, a few announcements. First, you can catch us streaming live every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday at twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ. And if you can't catch us live, you can always catch some of our highlights offline, as well as various tutorials and constructed videos, including the video version of this podcast on YouTube. Just search up Eternal Journey, and there you have it. And then, of course, our shout-outs. Like to give some appreciation and acknowledgement to those people that help the community go around and help us keep the lights on here, keep doing more of what we're doing. So, a few quick shout-outs this week. First off, Chastity Weaver and Extinction just absolutely murdering it with those bit donations and gift subs. They are hype train conductors without a doubt. Absolutely killing it this weekend. Thank you both for the ongoing support. It is really appreciated. Next up, Shab coming in with a 3-month resub. That's right, they earned their Jedi lightsaber. Shab, a big drafter. In fact, he recently has been going on an article streak, writing articles that go up on Eternal Warcry, focusing on the draft format, talking about some deep dives as well as basic breakdowns of the format. So if you get the chance, definitely check those out. Along with Shab, in the most recent article, he brought on BetterUp, which is another top drafter and a friend of the show that used him essentially at his drafts and some of his ideals and deck building tips in the article itself as well. So shout out to BetterUp, another fellow streamer. And an ongoing and never-ending appreciation, thank you to all the great supporters that week after week, stream after stream, month after month, support the show and myself. You guys are great. That's why I enjoy streaming so much. It feels like I'm just kicking it with my friends. You guys get to laugh at my punt, so they feel less bad on my end, and then we all get to win together. So thank you guys so much for all the ongoing support. That's going to do it, though. So now it's time for our Pack 1 Pick 1. Celtic, are you ready for some Pack 1 Pick 1 action?
Absolutely.
Excellent. All right, so because we have two guests, I'll go ahead and fire off the entire pack. And then, Celtic, you can lead us off by telling us the cards you are looking at, what your pick is, and then we'll send it over to you, E-Money.
Yep, sounds good.
This pack is brought to us by Lepity from the Eternal Journey Discord. Lepity found this pack to be quite interesting and wanted some additional help, so thought they would like to have it on the show, and that's what we're doing now. So thank you, Lepity, for sharing this with the community. Starting off with the commons, we have Eager Deputy is a 0/1 gunslinger for 1 fire. It has plunder, and then whenever you play a unit that has more attack than Eager Deputy, it gets +1 attack permanently. Vorpal Cutter is the 1/3 rogue for 3 shadow with decay. When Vorpal Cutter attacks, it gets the attack or plus attack equal to the highest attack amongst units you control. Time symbol, obviously depleted power, 2 time. We have Valley Clan Sage, 0/5 for 2. Grizzly Contest is the fast spell for 3 shadow, has revenge and sacrifice unit to kill an enemy unit. Overheating Minibot will move right along. Red Mask Warrior is a 4/1 Centaur Warrior for 3 fire, decay, and then ultimate when you play a spell with cost 5 or more, gain triple fire influence. And then our final common is Lurking Brute. This is the 2/2 for 2 Minotaur Rogue. When Lurking Brute hits the enemy player, he gets +1/+1. At the uncommon level, we have Hired Gun is the 2/4 Gunslinger for 3 shadow. If you have double fire influence, Hired Gun has double damage. If you have double justice, it has endurance. We have Huru Vow and then a Saber of Progress, which is a +3/+3 runic weapon for a relic weapon, for 6 justice, and summon, play a random sigil, form your deck depleted for every double time influence you have. All right, without revealing the rare just yet, Celtic, what are you looking at here?
So I think this is actually a really strong pack in that a lot of the commons here I would not mind using in a deck if I had the right faction for it. That being said, when I start with a pack one, pick one, I try to pick a card that doesn't necessarily commit to a faction. So even though I like Hired Gun and Grizzly Contest, I would probably skip those due to being double shadow and Hired Gun really wanting either fire or justice. Although, let me clarify that a 3-cost 2/4 is actually not bad on its own. You don't have to be in fire or justice to use him. I think Minibot is actually okay, but definitely not a first pick. I also like the Centaur, but again, not a first pick. The only card here that I really don't care much for is Valley Clan Sage, but that's still a good wall. The card that I like the most is Vorpal Cutter because I've seen and I've played with this card a lot, and it always feels powerful to me. Even if you're not attacking with it, it's a good defender. So I think that it's probably my pick.
Okay, yeah, I could definitely agree with that. I do think there's something to be said about an 05 defender and a 2/4 unit as well. I think they're a little less good in this format, mainly because of the presence of decay. So even something like, for example, a Vorpal Cutter can slowly wear down that wall. But I do think there's something to be said about that for sure. Okay, our rare before we send it over to eMoney is Bartholo's Keepsake. This is a slow spell for 3 shadow. Draw a unit, weapon, or power of your choice from the top 4 cards of your deck and bottom the rest. If you have double justice influence, if it costs 3 or less, play it instead. All right, eMoney, what are you looking at in this pack?
I'm eager for that eager deputy. I was severely undervaluing Plunder. And the eager deputy is also a 1-drop that can become relevant into the late game. Some people throw removal at it because it just keeps growing and growing. So a 1-drop that can trade up and plunder. I'm all over eager deputy.
I agree with you. I also had an issue with Plunder where I saw its value, but I wasn't valuing it high enough because the units it's tacked onto are like slightly subpar. But the fact that they are able to really smooth out your draws, both cashing in extra power late game and creating power early game when you need it, really makes it that there's a reason why the units they're attached to aren't super fancy, because of the fact that Plunder is such a strong mechanic.
I would make a note that even though I agree that Eager Deputy is a really good first pick, I also don't draft Fire quite as much. I find myself in Shadow more, so that might be one reason I'm valuing Vorpal Cutter over it. But I would see it going either way.
Well, I mean, there's no denying Vorpal Cutter's power. I think that card has won plenty of games on its own, and being in Shadow, you're going to have access to high attack units that just make... It doesn't take much. You put a 3/3 on the board, and now this thing's attacking as a 4/3 decay. It's it's quite a beater. Heaven forbid you have a Murky Tentacles and it's attacking for 6. So.
Yep. Also noteworthy is that Bartholo's Keepsake, I've heard actually that it's pretty good and constructed. I've had some people telling me that it's really worth looking at, but definitely not in draft. That's very hard to pull off.
I think in Argenport, yeah, as a first pick, it's tough. I'm definitely not looking at it as a first pick, but I do think there is some application for it because of the fact that it can also ramp you. I think that's something that people forget sometimes is that if you decide to take the sigil and you do have the Argenport influence, it will play that sigil and essentially you could potentially go from 3 to 5 the following turn, as well as sometimes just digging for your bomb card or playing a card on the spot when you don't. So I think the card is, like you said, it's definitely seeing play and constructed where you can design your deck a little bit better. In limited, it's a little bit tougher. I wouldn't mind taking it as a pack or pack 4 pick 1, but I think as a pack 1 pick 1, it's not enough. Like it's pretty much the same as a scheme almost.
I really don't have much to add. You guys basically said everything about this pack. My preferences are also with the commons here, and it's between Deputy and Vorpal Cutter for me. And I think I just barely lean towards the Vorpal Cutter. I think it's just a personal preference thing, like Celtic said. So,
yeah, fair enough. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's what makes drafting so much fun. Alex,
you guys pretty much said everything that needed to be said right there.
That's going to do it for our pack 1 pick 1. Thank you again to Lepity for submitting that to the show. We really do appreciate it, which means we're going to dive into our main topic, which is we're going to be recapping the draft championship that recently happened this past weekend, getting both the opinions of eMoney as well as Celtic on how it went and how their drafts went. And then after that, we will go ahead and do a bit of a broader stroke on the format, finding out some of the techniques and preferences and things that they've gained to continuously make the top tiers of this draft format. So starting off with eMoney this time, I guess, since we go back and forth, buddy. How did you feel about the tournament? This is the pseudo first of its kind. We had kind of a sealed limited event, I believe, for Worlds last year that was sealed, followed by another sealed. This is the first time that they started to incorporate actual drafting, and it was 3 drafts on day 1. Swiss, so you played 7 games, win or lose, which I personally was a fan of. And then in day 2, you drafted 1 time, and then they went to the top 8 to draft again, if I'm correct.
That sounds like that was the case. I did not make top 8, but certainly that's how it started.
Well, you made day 2, and that's more than some of us on this podcast can say. So, eMoney, go ahead and break it down for us, buddy. How'd you feel about the whole thing?
I thought this tournament was a win for Direwolf. Even with the technical issues, there are some delays in starting the draft on day 2. I thought the chat in Direwolf's stream was excited about it. I thought the matches were entertaining. And it just seemed like people just kept asking for more of this in the future. So I think that's a big deal. I really enjoyed that aspect. And then as far as competing in it, it felt good to me. It's just like any other draft for me, but with higher stakes.
The one thing that I know was another community outcry. Yes, there definitely was some technical difficulties, which some of them I can understand, and other ones not really, because I don't really see this tournament, as far as some of the behind the scenes stuff, be that different from the other tournaments that they've hosted. But you know, I don't exactly know the coding and how it went, but there were some things like, for example, one big argument was the fact that, you know, everyone that qualified that had the correct number, I believe 80 draft championship points, was automatically buyed into day 2. So they skipped day 1 altogether, which ended up being 34 players. So the top 30 slots of day 1 were the ones that were going to go on to day 2. But then for some reason on the leaderboards, it only displayed the top 30 or top 20 instead of the top 64 like they normally do. Granted, it showed you where your rank was and 5 above you, 5 below you, something like that. But so the people that were trying to keep track of things like that only saw the top 20, and then everyone that was 21 to 30 had no idea we just couldn't see, and that was one of the gripes. The other thing is the fact that it was only a 12-hour window to participate in your games, which I think most other tournaments are what, 24 hours, John, if I'm correct?
A little more, actually, like 28 hours, I think, or 20 or 30 hours maybe.
Yeah. And see, I'll be honest with you, this one, I can understand that because obviously we're appealing to a international game where people from all various types of jobs, careers, and time zones have to play in. But I think the fact that they understood that we're a small community as it is, and then a fraction of that is the only ones that draft, I feel like if they gave people the larger window, it would have been a lot more difficult for all the games to be played because of the fact that there's less people queuing. So I think that's why they might have done that. Though I do know that that was definitely another complaint that was made by the community, is that they didn't have the time to essentially get all their games in for the people that had family issues and commitments and whatnot.
It's kind of interesting because when you think about it compared to, say, like a real life draft tournament, you have even less time. You have to be at a certain place right on the dot. It's amazing how convenient we thought things have become with all the technological advancements.
Yep.
Yeah, you can walk away mid-draft if you need to, come back 10, 15 minutes later, still keep drafting. What's your take on it?
It's both a wonderful thing and sometimes a hindrance. But sorry, what were you going to say?
No, just your opinion on the overall flow of the tournament and how it was handled, and just your experience of it.
Okay, so first of all, big improvement over the sealed that you mentioned. One of my favorite comparisons to this is to say that doing a sealed tournament for draft championship is like asking a snowboarder to enter a skiing championship, because it's like, yeah, sure, you're both involved coasting over snow, but it's not the same thing at all. You might be skilled in one but not the other, because even though they're both limited formats, there's just such a different mentality to having a bunch of cards you have to sort through or picking one from each pack. I like that we got 3 drafts, because if you only got one, then if you had just happened to get a bad draw, then you're immediately out. Having 3 is a much better compromise so that your skills have a better chance to shine through. And I also like that you got to play all 7 games. That was a good move. Would have been very unfortunate if you just got cut out after 3 losses. And day 2, well, you mentioned the technical difficulties. And Direwolf Digital usually does a great job with this, so I'm not, and I don't know what's behind the scenes either. I have no knowledge of coding at all, so I might be unqualified to talk about this. But what I will say is that what happened for the delay was that they put the same person twice on the bracket and left somebody else off. That's why we got delayed by about 45 minutes. It left, when I was talking with other people, a lot of them who had already been nervous were getting really antsy, and that has a mental effect on them, so that delay did hurt. The drafts overall, when I was talking to other people, it sounded like they were really weak packs. I know my draft is one of the worst I've ever had, and I'm not saying like that from a tournament perspective. I'm saying I would have expected to go 0-3 in a regular draft if I had used this pool. And the worst offender, in my opinion, is that after you get 30 minutes to draft, you were given 10 minutes to observe the entire card pool. You don't know what the person's deck is going to be, but you know what their entire card pool is. So I got matched up against Finkel, and I looked at Finkel's deck pool, and I said, okay, even though my deck is bad, I think I actually have a decent matchup against these cards. And I planned my deck accordingly. Then I got queued into Super Vader Man, because apparently everyone got queued into somebody else entirely. And as it turns out, Vader Man, while being also a great drafter, had a very good deck against me, so I just got steamrolled. So having everyone suddenly be thrown about to people they didn't expect after having 10 minutes to prepare for a match, that was just very unfortunate. And I know some people that got hit even worse, like somebody who had, what was it, I think 3 imprisons, and they suddenly got thrown into a match against somebody with 4 corrosive daggers. Not pretty.
Yeah, and that's Sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles, for lack of a better term. Like, there's plenty of times that we've all had a deck that we thought was really good, and then we go up against just a bad matchup where the cards line up incorrectly, or the other way around, where you have a deck that you're not super happy about, and all of a sudden you just smash somebody.
Definitely so, but the problem I have here with this specifically is that after we had those 10 minutes to specifically plan our deck for this matchup, and then getting put against somebody else entirely who we had not gotten to plan for, was very misleading. And I'm sure Direwolf Digital didn't mean for that to happen. It was totally a mistake. And since everyone was put at a disadvantage, so there's no sense in redoing it. But at the same time, it hurts.
Yeah. When you look at someone's curve or the cards they have, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna build my deck in this way because according to what I think they're gonna play, and then you do end up going against someone else. You might have built your deck a little different if you just wanted to be generically or inherently good versus a little bit better towards a specific matchup.
Exactly, and it's an interesting idea because you don't get to do that in regular drafts. So I actually kind of like that. I would like to try that in a community-hosted tournament where you get to look at everybody's pool and think, okay, let me try and use this card which I normally wouldn't. It's a shame it didn't work out here, but yeah, as you said, I probably wouldn't have gotten far either way just because I had such a bad draft. To give some context, I had 14 units, and that was with me specifically looking for them. I had to pass up a From Anguish and an Argenport deck just to get a unit.
Oh, wow.
Oof.
It was very bad.
Yeah, that's definitely some discipline there. I've been in those shoes once or twice myself, and it's, you really want to take the card, but you're like, I really need some units. Well, since we started talking about the decks, let's go ahead and break that down a little bit. Since you talked about your day 2 deck, let's go in reverse order. E-Money, do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about the deck that got you to top 8?
It was a Rakano draft. I can't remember what first pack was, but I think in my first couple picks, I was thinking Argenport, and then saw a few decent red cards, and then like around pick 5 or 6, I realized Justice was just wide open, and I never looked back.
Were you trying to go mono Justice? It was that wide open, or no? You knew you were going to be 2 factions for sure.
I never look at this format trying to do 1 faction. I just try and get into whatever's open.
Fair enough. Yeah, the one thing I've noticed, the interesting drafts are the ones where you're getting past 2 factions, pack 1 and 4, and then 2 other factions, pack 2 and 3. Those are the more frustrating drafts for sure.
Oh yeah.
Do you have any highlights and stuff you wanted to bring up about your day 1 drafts and tournament run?
Let's see. Highlights were the Rebuke top deck. I got lucky. I got really lucky on day 2 because I didn't play in day 1. Are we talking about the same day?
Oh yeah. Okay. Go ahead. That's right. You had the buy. Sorry.
Okay. I got really lucky. Even on the coverage, you saw I top decked the Rebuke for that Omen Scar Worm, which just broke M. Jiggy's back, and I thought I was out of the game. I thought my tournament was over at that point because he quickly went up a game, and I was falling behind. So to peel that Rebuke for me was just like, oh, thank you, Grandpa. Thank you. Thank you. Let's see there. I think there's another key position. Oh, when I peeled the Unbreakable Tradition after he had stabilized once again, then I peeled the Unbreakable Tradition off the top to push through. So really, it was just lucky grabs towards the end.
I'll say it was good deck building and good piloting to navigate to where that was going to be a reasonable top deck for you.
That's right. You have to put yourself in the position. So it's not 100% luck, but yeah, you have to also put yourself in the position to grab those tokens.
I need to go back to the original set review and see how high I was on Unbreakable Tradition. I can't remember because I know the 5 cost on it probably stressed me out a little bit, but man, I feel like I never passed that card if I could help it, and it's won me so many games.
It's incredible. It's amazing, just not only from the surge value, but just the high. I have a unit that suddenly became incredibly massive, and that doesn't end at the end of the turn. Oops.
Yep. Oops. That's right.
You can't sleep on it. You can't sleep on it. I can recall at least 2 drafts recently. Yeah, you're like, oh, I'm at 13. I'm good. I could take this hit. Oh, nope. Never mind. I'm dead.
I like that.
It's bottoms up all over again.
Yeah. Oh gosh. At least you can somewhat block Unbreakable Tradition. Bottoms up is just an absolute beating. Yep. All right, Celtic, let's send it back over to you. You did have to actually play in the Swiss round in day 1 and still managed to qualify with, I think you finished day 1 firmly in like 19th or 20th place, something like that. So do you want to break down some of the stuff for us from day 1 for you?
Yeah, definitely. I tend not to grind out. Draft or any other mode. In fact, I've actually been. I usually like to get the legendary shinies, but due to fearing burnout, I've actually played less for leaderboards and more for just having fun. So I did have to play in the get to the day 2 tournament.
Swiss round.
Swiss round, yes. So my first one was easily my strongest. I didn't know where I was in pack 1, and in pack 2, I got 3 Majestic Skies. And I was like, okay, this means I'm going to take every single flyer in every single pack, and then I'm going to win, because I've got Majestic Skies. What is it called? Shifting Illusion, the one that has Plunder?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I had 3 of those, and suddenly they got a lot better having the Majestic Skies. I also got a Linrise Stranger as my first pick, but I never drew it in any of the games. So I went 6-1 with this deck that had a Linrise Stranger and never actually used it.
Yep, been there before.
It was also my first Linrise Stranger, so hey, legendary added to the collection. So that was just kind of an easy beating. The second one was Xenon, and that one went 4-3. It was a pretty forgettable draft. Only thing I have to comment on is I didn't realize just how good Urgent Missive is with Mr. Crocodile and Roland's Inquisitor, because that activates them 3 times. So I've valued that card a bit more when I have a Shadow deck that has I care about cards in my opponent's turn deck, but that's about it. The third one was Combre with 2 splash change sticks. That's the only splash I did. I have found splashing to be really difficult in this format, but with change stick, it's like kind of a necessary. I'm going to try and do this so I have a win condition. Started off 0-2, ended at 5-2. My most memorable moment was I had somebody at 2 health, and I had a 1 attack flyer, and then I threw Trick Shot Ruffian, and I had 22 Justice Influence, so they died very badly.
Oof.
Yep, Trick Shot. Oh god, Trick Shot.
I mean, he got nerfed. That doesn't change the fact that he kills people. But the common thread here, all my decks are in time. I've just found time to be such an easy thing to read. Like, here's the cards that I know are really good in time. Here's what I can do to splash if I want to, even though I don't normally do so. Even though I know a lot of people are like, oh, Justice is the best faction. I'm like, I've just found myself comfortably slotting into time whenever I can.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I like time, but I'm definitely on the Justice train. I think it's just so deep of a faction that even if there's someone else drafting ahead of you, you can still put together a pretty decent deck, especially if it's medium, even remotely open in one of the packs. You could just really get hooked up. I've had busted decks with 3 or 4 finest hours or 3 siphoners. It's just kind of ridiculous. And I think out of all the 4 faction cards, the Smogwing Tinker is probably the strongest. Disappear's up there as well, but there's some things that the fact that it's evasive, it can win the game, and it gains you life to stabilize is just huge. Alex,
You guys pretty much said everything that needed to be said right there.
I've been well, I mean, it's hard to play any of the four faction ones, but Nightwatch Broadsword has been the card that I've seen Justice players just murdering me with again and again and again. But the thing with me is that Justice is never open, it feels like, except for, well, like I just said, I have Combre, and my Day 2 deck was an Argenport deck, but my Day 2 deck, nothing was open, so that didn't matter. So I've been in Justice less than I think a lot of people have, just because it never seems open to me.
fair. I must be on the flip side of that because I keep getting forced into Huru. I try to go different factions, and just the second half of the pack is always Huru every single time. I've done it. Even the last draft I did on stream, I literally took a Reality Snap and then a Disappear and then Apprentice Mage, and then the rest of the packs had no time in it and just fed me Huru. I was like,
I mean, I love owls, so I'm not complaining about that.
Yep, fair enough. Okay, so those are the specifics, and I really do appreciate you guys recalling the best you can. Let's step back a little bit and take a slightly broader stroke, because this was something that was talked about. I did my run on stream, and we had discussed about this, and I think at the very least, a Swiss type of format where you played all 7 games of your draft, win or lose, was absolutely great, because all of us have been in that position where your deck just kind of, you know, sabotages you, shoots you in the foot, and a good deck ends up performing poorly, and a deck that you think could have easily gotten 4 or 5 wins ends up going 1 and 3 because you just got those bad luck games at the beginning. So how do you guys, I mean, granted, obviously you can only play 7 games, so unless you go 7-0, you weren't going to see 7 wins. But how did you guys feel about just maybe potentially having a Swiss type format for draft as a more consistent basis? Start with you, E-Money.
I think more games is always a better thing, as long as you don't like have a million of them. So 7 Swiss with each one mattering, I think almost everyone's just going to feel better about that, because it just it means you're not putting it all on 1 or 2 games. You have a lot more wiggle room, and I think that's what people enjoy about the Swiss format.
Plus, it also gives you the chance to adjust your deck a little bit, right? Versus you build the deck, you go, 1 and 2, you're like, okay, let me change it. You get 1 more loss, and that's it. And you can't really find out if your changes mattered or not sometimes. Granted, some of us don't have the deepest pools where we're able to do that, but sometimes we do, where we make somewhere between 5 to 8 cuts where you actually can modify your deck somewhat in between games. Celtic, what do you think about the overall Swiss format?
I'm going to make a bold claim and say that they should just make it so that all drafts should be 7 games win or lose. Because I am totally on board with the whole, I made this really sweet deck, I want to see how it does. Oh, that was a 0-3 one. Yep. I love the Swiss format. I think it was great.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they have to tweak the rewards to accommodate that or not, because obviously, like I said, if that, as soon as you get 1 loss, then the most wins you can get is 6. If you get 2 losses, 5, etc., etc. But yeah, I'd rather just guarantee that every single deck I draft gets at least 7 games in, because yeah, there's nothing worse than drafting a sweet deck and then just having bad luck or RNG kind of shooting your foot. You're like, well, that was it. I'll never get to see that deck again because I can't challenge anyone with 45 card decks. John?
Yep.
Oh, go ahead, Celtic.
Oh, I was just going to say that please add a versus mode where we could play 45 card decks. That would be very nice.
See, and honestly, I don't think that's going to happen. Reason being is that they're already so free to play friendly, and drafting is one of the ways they can kind of have people spend some of their digital income. I think it just doesn't suit them as a business to do that. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. That's just my take on it. As why
I'm talking I'm talking specifically for like friend challenges, not an actual queue.
No, yeah, that's what I mean though, because then what would happen is that exactly that we would draft a deck and be like, sweet, cool, save it, and then we'll just battle each other out for a while, and then we wouldn't draft again for a minute. You know what I mean? Versus as soon as you finish drafting, you normally queue up again because you want to keep drafting.
I'm skeptical like Celtic.
It depends. I mean, a lot of people care about the leaderboard, so that would not matter if you were going against friends. And I personally like getting cards and keeping cards, so I'd want to keep drafting to get more cards.
Fair. That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm for it. I'm all for, because then my cube drafts can happen too, and that's a lot more fun. I don't have to worry about trying to make these cube drafts for 75 card decks.
You're right, like in that it's hard to convince a company to invest resources in something that like will never make them any money, which is what programming that into the game would do.
So what was your take on the Swiss, John?
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. I'd be open, to that being a normal draft kind of thing, like you guys are talking about. I think they would have to change the rewards and stuff, but I'm open to the idea for sure. I think in a perfect world, they would go like every 3 months we'd get just a draft ECQ. Like I would, like Expedition ECQ, Throne ECQ, Draft ECQ. Maybe during that, yes, right. And maybe during that draft month, they could do those Expedition and Throne challenges on the other weekends, and like just have the coverage that month be for the draft tournament. Like, I mean, I would buy into that every single time they had one. A lot of other people would as well.
Yes, please.
Or I mean, we saw that with the last tournament where they could just delegate it down to the community, be like, hey, we're having a tournament, but we really don't want to put that many resources into it, so here 3 or 4 people from the community can take over, but we'll host it.
That'd be great, except it goes back to the issue you mentioned with the friendly challenges and the 45 card kind of thing.
Well, I mean similar to what they did with the ECQ, where they handled the actual in-client side, but then they let the community broadcast it.
If they don't want to do the coverage for it, whatever. Like, but I mean, LSV seemed pretty excited to do the draft coverage the other day, and it was, as a spectator, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I
was so happy they did the draft portions too, and then I was like, man, if they do another one, that would be so cool. And then they did.
Yep.
It's kind of funny because in the email that they sent for the top 64, they said to contact somebody on Discord to say I'm willing to volunteer my draft. Mm-hmm. So I tried to do that, and that person literally never logged on for the entire time until just before. So it was way too late when they finally got my message because they were never there.
Sorry.
So I'm not sure what that was about, and I kind of wish that they had a better way of handling that. But again, it was their first time, so who knows?
It was one of many balls that they dropped on Sunday, unfortunately. But
yeah, John was very much of the accord that everything that could have gone wrong went wrong.
Pretty much.
Oh no, there's things that could have gone even worse.
It was so
I've got a very vivid imagination. Things could have gone worse.
That's right.
Fair enough. Okay, well, that's going to do our recap for the Draft Championship. Stay tuned. Due to technical difficulties, they were not able to complete the top 8. So that has been postponed to a later date. We'll find out if they are going to broadcast it or not. We'll see. But stay tuned. And then you can see our friend EmoneyBags compete for his shot. You only got to win 1 round, too. It's best out of 3. Right?
Yeah, I'm feeling good.
Yeah, you just got to win 2 games. Win 2 games and you're going to Worlds.
That's right.
Good luck.
You already have your deck drafted and everything, is that right?
Deck is ready to go. I'm feeling good about it.
Wonderful. Good to hear.
Nice. I'm excited. Hopefully
Godspeed.
Hopefully they do it in a way where we can see more games than less,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. But all right, let's go ahead and pull back a little bit and start doing a little more about the format, and pretty much just give us whatever details you guys, rules of thumbs, traits, cards that stand out to you, interactions, things like that you guys have really taken to this format to allow you to consistently, get to those 6-7 win games and climb the boards. Let's start off with you, Money, because you have been killing it in this format, man.
It's funny you say that because I was about to not play in the championship because the last switch with the format broke me. I could not get a handle on it, and I wasn't sure what I was doing wrong. So then I went and was talking with my partner in crime, Sizzle, and he said, "No, I'm killing it at this format. What are you talking about?" And so I was like, "I can't figure it out, man." He was like, "All right, here's the thing," and he told me these 3 rules, and these turned everything around for me. First is don't try and do more than one color in pack 1. There are heavy influence cards that you need to aim at. And you going into packs 2 and 3, because they're so much weaker than 1 and 4, you have to be fluid. You have to be able to switch. And so if you commit to 2 colors early, you are less likely to switch, and then you'll just be taking weaker cards. The second rule was in the games, be patient. And that means if you aren't sure whether to attack in or commit your combat trick at a certain point, then you wait. And it usually would pay off for me. In the past, I've been very aggressive in my games and my attacks. And so once he told me that, and I started holding on to them a little bit longer, that seemed to help out a lot. And then the third thing was can't quite remember exactly. It was something along the lines of
check rule 1 and 2.
Yeah, check rule 1 and 2. It was just don't be afraid to switch colors. If once you hit packs 2 and 3, the format is so dependent on getting some type of strength out of packs 2 and 3. So based off your just trying to see one color in pack 1, then in 2 and 3, just get into whatever's open. It really was as simple as that for me. And I'm sorry. I just remembered rule 3. Rule 3 was don't draft a deck that's all 2-drops. That's all 2s and 3s. You have to have bigger units in your decks to battle through all the 5 butts in the format.
Okay, all right. What is there? Have you been completely all over the place in this format, or is there an archetype or a faction pairing that you kind of find yourself gravitating to?
Definitely gravitating towards Rakano right now. It in the middle 2 packs, it has a lot of the 5-power attack fire guys, guys that I would like not even give a second thought before in past formats. I'm talking about Centaur Outrider, 5/2 for 4. I'm talking about Dusthoof Brawler. I guess I did play Brawler before, but 5/3 Overwhelm for 5. And then Pit Fighter, 6/3 regular for 5. And those guys just give you the oomph you need to pound through opponents' boards. And then because the tricks are still very good, if one of those guys is left standing after you trade tricks in combat, then you can still hit hard.
And of course, they synergize very well with Might Weaver.
Mm-hmm. It's one of my favorite cards in the format.
Yeah, I'm still on the fence between Might Weaver and Battle Driver, but of course they're both in fire and they both work very well together.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to know where you're getting your Might Weavers, because I don't think I've seen a single one in I don't know how long.
That happened to me with Mantle of Justice and Victor's Cries. I felt at the beginning of the format I was the only one taking them, and I was taking them aggressively, and man, was I winning games. And I guess people actually listen to the podcast or something, but I can't remember the last time I saw Mantle go by.
Sizzle was telling me he was watching you do a Rakano draft, and you ended up with just like a ridiculous amount of finest hours and Victor's cries, and you just like, are people just not interested in Rakano and good combat tricks right now? I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, Rampage has proven to be extremely powerful in this format as well.
Rampage.
I've always liked Rampage. I don't know why people were down on that card ever.
I've always liked it, exactly.
Yeah, Pursuit is the one that I pass up. I can't remember the last time I put Pursuit in any of my decks. The two cost fast spell for +1 or +3 to the target, and then +1 to everybody else on your board.
Yep. Yeah. If I have a Might Weaver in my pool already, I will definitely take one Relentless Pursuit.
I can't comment because I've never gotten to play Might Weaver.
Do you have any take on Feln, which is one of the slower, more grindy faction pairings in the format?
Feln is one I don't draft a lot because
No.
because Justice is just so deep to me. I'm often Justice with something else. But Feln commons, specifically Shadow commons, are ridiculously bad in packs 2 and 3.
Yeah, and I feel like they changed the removal, right, John? The weighting on the removal in packs 2 and 3 has changed, because I felt like previously I could see Death Strikes going late, Defiles going late. Now I can't remember the last time I've seen a good Shadow piece of removal minus feeding time.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay, let's send it over to you, Celtic. What tips and tricks have you picked up on the format?
First comment is that it's been difficult to navigate the second and third packs because I think a lot of people are confused about what to do. I keep getting past packs that don't really have any clear signals.
Yes.
And a lot of my decks have just been carried by the first and fourth packs. I do try to stick to the rule of don't commit to 2 factions. Go with one and then pick the other once you're in the second, third pack. But that's rough because a lot of people seem to be like, I'll just take all the Justice cards and you'll be left with all these other cards. And said, oh, just kidding. I decided to switch over and get all these cards, so now you got nothing. And then there's been abnormal packs. Like, I got a pack that had like 5 Justice cards in it, and then the next pack had absolutely none. So, you know, it's been all over the place. That being said, I've learned to appreciate some of the cards in the second and third packs that I think a lot of people overlook. Go back to my Primal's Better Than People Think. Cutbrush Cartographer. That was a card that I used in my Legion deck, and I had used against me in the tournament, and that card is actually really darn good. I thought it could be good when it first came out, but this format, it seems like it has a lot of time to boost itself up, and then if you can give it some evasion, like with Valiant's Leap or Changey Stick, then all of a sudden it murders somebody out of nowhere. It does feel like Justice has the best diversity of units in the second and third packs, and I know that's amazing that Justice has a deep pool. Wow, Justice never saw that before in the draft. But I would like to mention that one card that has stood out to me after the changes is that Boltergate Guard, instead of feeling decent, now feels really good, and I love picking up that Owl when I can.
Yeah, them giving Plunder to it has definitely changed it in my eyes, because I would never. John was higher on it. He was always like, dude, it's a good card. I'm like, nope, I'm not playing it. And then they plundered, and I'm like, all right, I'll put it.
Boltergate Guard I thought was always okay because there's a lot of small flyers in the format, and it's nice to be able to block them, and there's a lot of weapons in Justice to give it so that it can attack anyway. I think that one game I mentioned where I had the huge Trickshot Ruffian, I gave it, what is it called? It's the badge that gives you +1/+3.
Badge of Honor.
Yes, thank you. I gave it that and literally was just pecking the opponent the entire game, and they could do nothing about it. But Plunder just makes it so that even in a situation where you can't use it, at least it's doing something.
So, man, I would ask you to go a little bit deeper into Legion, because that's actually one of the factions that I feel it is somewhat difficult to get in. I've seen it very infrequently, and when I do, it's normally because they picked up something like Wump or they're splashing for it. So, but I mean, obviously you picked up 3 favored wins, so I mean it's kind of hard to to not be an Elysian after that.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things is that I've always been a bit higher on Primal than a lot of people have. But it's just like any other faction. You have to know what you look for. You have to know which cards are going to work in your hands and which ones have proven effective in the format. There are formats where I would not think cut brush cartographer, was that worthwhile, but in this one he's felt really good, so there's that. I just usually in pack 1 I tend to find myself getting past a lot of time cards that I view as highly. Hunting Allosaur tends to come late, and that's a really good one in my opinion, especially because this is a slower format, so you can often get to 7 power and break open the board by giving a unit decay and killer. I think that a lot of the combat tricks like Valiant Leap get overlooked. Being able to give something flying and then have it suddenly get flying again later on when your opponent might have forgotten all about it is stronger than people give it credit for. And just, I don't know, it's like any other faction pairing. It has to be open, but I think a lot of people overlook said faction pairing because they don't know what primal cards to look for and to see if it is open.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I'll be honest, I'm right there with you. I see the majority of my primal cards coming in fairly late because I'm just, and sometimes I think it's hard to distinguish between when sometimes the packs just don't have the cards or the people passing you just aren't sure what they're doing, because there have been plenty of times where I'm sitting there. I even asked chat, I'm like, oh, cool, here's a, something, a 4th or 5th pick, reality snaps. You're like, all right, time's open. And then I see time cards for 2 more picks, and then the rest of the packs are void of time. Or all of a sudden I see a 10th pick, Victor's Cry. I'm like, what is going on? I have no idea what you're telling me to do. So it can be a little frustrating sometimes. It's tough. I'm not sure if sometimes the cards just aren't in the packs and that's why you're not seeing it, or if legitimate people are just randomly picking cards or whatnot when they're feeding you.
It feels that way a lot of times with the 2nd and 3rd packs, especially for me. I think a lot of people have been struggling with 2nd and 3rd packs. I was talking with somebody recently, and they said that they had been having unit problems for a long time, like trying to get enough units for their decks. And I was kind of surprised because that day 2 of the tournament is literally the first time I've had an issue getting enough units. So I don't know.
Sometimes you just get really hooked up. If packs 2 and 3, that's why I aggressively take 2 and 3 drops when I see them in this format, because I want to make sure that I have my critical mass of units. There have been a couple times where I was like, we had those train wreck packs 2 and 3, and I'm like, oh man, we're at 10 units. Like, this is gonna be rough. And we go into pack 4, but we remembered that justice or time was open. All of a sudden we come out of there with 18, 19, sometimes even 20 units by the end of the draft. Though,
right.
I mean, much like what you said, sometimes I did have to have that discipline and pass that rare or that good uncommon because it was a spell, not a unit. But yeah, sometimes it can really come together too. I think there's an abundance of really solid units if you can kind of navigate packs 2 and 3 in some type of decency.
Yeah, absolutely. It hurts when you have to pass up a good rare or uncommon, but you have to look at your unit count and say, what's the point in having this spell if I don't have a unit to get far enough to use said spell?
Mm-hmm. E-Money, you mentioned by default you're a more aggressive player, like more low to the ground, but you have identified that there's just too much beef in this format where you do have to up your curve. Where do you normally sit at now with your decks in this current format? Are you going all the way up to 7 and 8, or are you sticking to maybe 4? Where are you at?
Yeah, I get a little bit beefier on that curve. You still have to make sure you draft enough 2s and 3s. But I'm always looking for this current format to have the most powerful late game I can. And so I'll go, I'd say the chunk, probably the biggest chunk of the deck. It's still probably in 3 and 4 drops, but I'll go to 6, 7, 8, especially if I have some cards that can ramp.
Okay. Yeah, I played, was it Zaxos, John? Is that the 9/9 for 9?
That sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, I took like 2 Apprentice Mages and a Trailmaker and something else. I think I took an Oasis or something. I ran it. I got to play it twice, so the format is somewhat slow enough for sure. And I'm with you, Celtic. I actually like hunting Allosaur quite a bit. I came down on a little bit because I think at the beginning of the format I thought the card was awesome. And there's just sometimes where the 4/5 body and the killer doesn't quite add up the way you want it to. But I do like it. And yeah, they go pretty late as well. Sometimes I have to have discipline to make sure that if I am in time, I don't walk away with 4 or 5 of them in my deck.
Oh gosh, yes. You don't want too many. I have used 2 before, and it's amazing how the game sometimes will say, "Oh, you got 2 of these cards. Would you like both of them in your opening hand? Would you? Would you? Well, too bad. That's what you're getting."
Yep. Oh man, you are so right. So right. Are there any other cards? You did mention Boulder Gate Guard and Cartographer. Are there any other cards that you feel are undervalued in the current format that have just overperformed for you?
Yes. I think I mentioned Valiant Leap already, but even inside of a deck that doesn't have Justice, it's still good. I think it sounds like you've already covered a lot of the Shadow cards that I like. I found myself in Shadow a fair amount in this format, which is not that usual for me. I can't think of that many formats where I lean Shadow. I tend to be more of a late game player. I don't usually draft aggro, so I guess stalling cards like Roland's Inquisitor and the Crocodile are pretty high up there for me. And of course, there's the Tentacle Unblockable Thing of Doom that probably needs a nerf because it's insane, but
which is I find it funny that you say that though, considering that I'm pretty sure all you play in Constructed is aggro.
I mean, my Monotime deck isn't really that aggro. Although I'm trying out the new L-Head, and that's an interesting card.
Fair.
Now, Combre aggro, I don't know. I don't know why that's a deck that I can use, but in draft, I don't know. Just something about aggro never seems to come together for me. I will say that I'm amazed at how many times I've run to mono decks that have immediately killed me, probably because I always get Prism Golem on turn 3.
Yep, that won me a couple of Scion drafts, which is a segue, but it's a little early. But yes, Prism Golem definitely won me some Scion drafts, and it's won me some. One of my quickest 7-0s was a Mono Justice deck that had 2 Prism Golems and 3 Finest Hours, so you can imagine how that played out.
Oh, yes, I can. I would like to try a mono deck sometime because mono decks are one of my favorite things, but draft also doesn't have Veteran Mercenary, so it's automatically inferior.
Fair point. Sending it back over to you, eMoney. What cards seem to overperform or seem to be undervalued by the community that you are high on?
I think just kind of those 3 fire guys I mentioned. The Outrider, Justice Brawler, and Pit Fighter. They've been the backbone of a lot of my recent decks.
Where are you on Rust Machine?
Love that thing. Rust Machine is a very good card.
Yeah, that card is just great. Man, it's such a scary card. I personally think it's scarier than Machinist personally, but that's a good way to put it. It's a very scary card to play against. I'd probably play 4 or 5 Rust Machines if I could get my hands on them. Right on.
Whenever I see Rust Machine, I try to kill it immediately. So I guess that's my opinion on it.
That's right. You want that thing off the board.
Yeah, it's just good. It ramps you. It makes your board go wide. You get extra value. That card is, you definitely don't want it sticking around for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think that's good enough for the format. I really do appreciate you guys sharing your insights with us, and congratulations on going deep into the first, I guess, draft championships. Just to change gears just a little bit, Celtic, I know you had mentioned that you were not able to do any Scion drafts this go around. E-Money, was that something you were interested in, or did you bypass on it as well?
I also bypass. I usually don't do the different draft formats.
Okay, fair enough. John, did you Scion draft at least?
I did one.
Okay, cool. You want to talk about that real quick?
I mean, it was medium. You know, I had fun. Did pretty well. Like, partway through the draft, I'm like, man, I kind of want to win some games. So like, I ended up building a lame deck that wins games. And I didn't like, you know what I mean? It's like, I knew I saw some other people doing it, and I knew if I went in there like with the deck I wanted to play, I would just get smashed, and that's not fun. You know, so I mean, the fact that they included like the new campaign cards, you know, was what really piqued my interest, right? Like, because those are cards we'll never get to draft with. So like, I treated it more as like a preview event and like a chance to draft these campaign cards. And I think some of them were, you know, actually looked kind of good, you know, in the draft format, and they will never look good again. Like, they're definitely not constructed playable. A lot of these ones I saw performing, so I think that was kind of fun. But overall, you know,
yeah, there have been plenty of times of this show where we've talked about the commons and uncommons from the campaign cards that we'll never see constructed playable. We felt they would have been super cool if they could have put them in draft formats, which obviously, once again, because of money purposes and profit, they I can't say never anymore because they just did, but we're rarely going to see in a place where you can actually acquire the cards outside of buying the campaigns. But yeah, That's exactly why I was into it. And of course, for those that don't know, the Scion Draft event is where you are drafting 45 card decks from 4 packs, but they are custom made packs from Dire Wolf that have no rarity restrictions. So you can easily open up a pack with 5 legendaries, 4 rares, etc., etc. This version included the cards from the most recent campaign, Awakening. And yeah, I managed to do 1 draft super early, and I was going, I think I might have been going Feln, or no, I started Argentport because I picked Roland, the Tyrant, first, and it just wasn't there. Shadow was there, but not Justice. And then I went to pack 2, and I think I tried Xenon, and same thing, time wasn't there, but Fire or Shadow was. And by the end of halfway through pack 3, I was mono Shadow, had 2 Prism Golems, had 2 big Akarias, 1 small Akaria. I was like, or Vara, and then 1 Akaria. I was like, all right, and I just steamrolled. Like, mono Shadow was busted. I picked up 4 Akanthas, so there you go, E-Money. A 2-drop that just turns into like a 6-drop later on.
Dunk on them.
Yeah, that card overperformed in this format for me, for sure. So yeah, it was a super fun draft, and then I decided to do it one more time, and this time I went Skycrag Flyers, and I just picked up the Ilsa, the 4/5 dragon for 5, for 5, that whenever another unit hits the enemy player, it gets 1 attack permanently, and when it's summoned, give your other units flying. I had 3 of those guys, so I just drafted all the flyers I could get my hands on, and oh man, did that thing overperform. I killed so many people. I would just not block. I'm like, that's cool, man, we'll race. And then my 4/5 becomes a 7/5 the turn I play it, and then the following turn it's like a 10/5. I'm like, yeah, sure, we'll do this race thing.
I've been trying to make a constructed deck with that guy because Throne Room has a lot of synergy with stuff like Snowchucker and Yeti Pult, where you hit the opponent and get a trigger for Throne Room. Same thing works with Mr. Dragon there.
Ooh, yeah, I like that. I like where your head's at, Celtic.
So trying that. Don't know if it's going to work, but I did in Gauntlet to at least get the achievements that are coming from the new campaign. Also, just a comment on the Scion Draft in that I didn't play this one, but I played the first one. For those thinking, wow, it sounds good, it's a Phantom Draft. You're not going to get all those legends.
Right. Oh, yeah, thank you for the clarification. Yeah, I forgot about that.
But it's a lot of fun. I had a great time with the first one. Wish I could have played this one. Didn't have the gold or time for it. So here we are.
The one thing I will say, too, that's kind of cool about the Scion Drafts is I feel the higher power level makes more constructive focused players come in and dabble in it as well. I feel like I saw more streamers that only do constructed dabble in the Scions, and constructed players talk about it on Twitter and stuff than usual. So I appreciated that part of it as well. Same thing with the draft championship. I guess I saw a couple of names in the tournament and seeing that even talked bad about drafting. They're like, I'll never draft. I don't even rare draft. It takes too much time. I'm like, all right. And then they were in the tournament. So
I mean, how long does it take you to bust through 4 packs and say there's a rare, there's a shiny?
I mean, I've seen Sifu Danny do it quicker than I could cry about it. So I mean, the first time I popped into his stream, he was rare drafting, and I was just like, what? No. I was like, all the value we're just missing out on right now.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. One of the reasons I love draft is getting to find really nice looking cards, shiny rares, legends, sometimes a shiny legend, taking it, knowing it's mine forever.
Yep.
Yeah, just don't goblin draft. Don't
goblin draft around me, please.
Yeah, E-Money and I were traumatized by the experience. I have never drafted and played so many form bends in decks in my life.
I'm not a streamer, so I don't need to worry about people watching me for silly stipulation drafts.
Fair.
Saved.
See, I actually lucked out in the tournament because both of the legendaries I opened up in the tournament, I had 4 of, and they weren't premium. So I was like, okay, I can pass on these because yeah, I 100% rarely do I ever pass on a legendary because why waste the Shiftstone when I could get for free from my collection? So
I'm one of those OCD people who doesn't want to craft unless there's a card that you literally cannot get any other way. So I'm sitting on 1,800,000 Shiftstone. So whenever 800,000, sorry. So yes, whenever I see a legend I don't have 4 of, I'm like, oh, I gotta take that. And it's like, you could just craft it. No.
Fair enough. But all right, that's gonna do it for our main topic. Breaking down once again the draft championship, talking about Celtic and E-Money's takes on the format, and then of course a little snippet on the Scion draft. So that is going to lead us into our what's the play, and this one is not necessarily a super elaborate one where we have 18 different lines of play. This is more like a thought process breaking down exactly how to do the attack. We will start off with you, E-Money, I think, because I've been going back and forth. So let me break down the board state. And of course, if you're watching or listening at home or on the drive and you rather see the board state, you can check this out on the YouTube channel. Real quick, our opponent is on, they're on 4 color, but I think they're on Time, Justice, and then Shadow with a light splash in Primal. And I think that was actually just off of one of the random, hey, you gain influence cards. Anywho, they're at 4 of 10. We're at 7 of 7 Rakano, but it doesn't matter because we have nothing but a Fire Sigil in hand. So 7 of 7 versus 4 of 10. Our opponent has 2 cards in hand. We have nothing but a Fire Sigil. Our opponent is at 11 life. We are also at 11 life. Now comes the interesting part, the board state. Our opponent has the 2/2 Wrangler that just makes units with attack 5 or greater, 1 less. They have a Silenced Blur Haze Worm that's a 1/1. A 6/6 Belching Behemoth that is currently imbued by a active Sandworm. And actually, I say active just because it's not silent, so it's a 7/7, but I believe they've already drawn their cards off of it, if I remember correctly. They have a Bane Wolf that already has the Mastery trigger on it, so it is a 7/6 unblockable. And then a 3/2 Machinist that has Overwhelm because it was returned by an Aramont Machinations. Our side of the board is Cassandra, the 3/4 Volunteer with Quick Draw. 2 3/5 Wagoneers, or not Wagoneers, Caravan Guardians, right? Caravan Defenders? Something like that. Caravan Guards. There we go. Caravan Guards. I don't know why I botched that up. Anywho, another 3/4 quick draw volunteer, a 3/4 flying Tinker Overseer, I believe it is.
Yes.
And then I don't remember what made it a 3/4. To be honest with you, I'm assuming.
Looks like a badge of honor.
Oh yeah, that's right, because they nerfed it. They nerfed it to a 2/1. That's right. That's why I was trying to do the math. I was like, wait, this doesn't add up. Yeah, that's right. Yes, so it has a badge of honor on it, and then a Forgeborn, which is the 7/7 overwhelm, and then you can pay 9 for it to get a +2/+0 for every unit you have in play. Of note, we can play our Fire Sigil, but it would only give us 8 power.
Also of note is that the Caravan Guards can attack. You've got 5 Justice.
Yes, thank you. All right, so that's the board state. Once again, I know that's a lot to take in, but let's send it over to eMoney.
All right, when I look at a board state like this that's complicated, a lot of moving pieces, my opponent has power open and maybe a few cards in hand, first question I always ask is, can I kill them this turn? I think you should always be asking that question. And the answer to that here is yes, we definitely have enough damage and attackers to go around them. As it stands, if those 2 cards in their hand don't matter, they're just dead on board, because we have 7 Overwhelm from the Forgeborn, we have 3 in the air from the Overseer, and then we have 4 other 3-power attackers against their 3 blockers. They only have 3 creatures able to block here. So it's, do you want to risk it against their open 4 power and 2 cards in hand? And here I say, with how the current format sits, and Xenon having so many tricks and ambush units, I might take my foot off the gas here and try and come up with a smart attack that doesn't leave me totally dead if they have like one thing that keeps them alive at 1 and then they crack back with their units. So I think I'm sending in Flyer, 7/7 Forgeborn, and probably the 2, 3, 4 quick draws. And then that would mean they have to pick up 2 units to not just die. But yeah, this one's a little muddy for me because of all the ambush and fast things.
Yep, and the fact that they have Justice means that pump spells are on the table as well. There's Xenon, so there's it's a very fine line, and that's why I actually screenshotted this one, because yes, on the board, plain and simple, we do have lethal if we just swing, but there's so many things that can muddle that, and so it's a decision on how much to attack. Do you consider attacking with enough where they have to force some blocks, whittling down their board, because they have a 7 attack unblockable on their side, so your clock is ticking as well.
Yep.
And like you said, it's Xenon, so they are a deck that's designed to interact on your turn, and you do have a certain level of inevitability on your side, but that still is based on when you will draw that 3rd, or correction, 9th power. Okay, before we send it over to John, Celtic, what are you looking at doing here?
First thing I noticed was that the Bane Wolf had unblockable, so I looked at our life and said, okay, if they draw anything, or they do have a combat trick, the Bane Wolf kills us. We can't do anything about that. They might have, say, a Wind Conjuring to ready one of their units or something. Doesn't matter if they use it this turn, because you just die from the Bane Wolf anyway. That's 11 damage. So in this specific situation where we theoretically have lethal, I would just send in everything and pray, because they might have an ambush unit to block one of them if you hold back. So I'd rather just get everything in and hope that the cards fall my way.
Okay. Okay.
That being said, I don't know if you saw any pauses earlier, because oftentimes I'll look for that before I make a decision, and I can't tell that from just a screenshot. So if there was a pause, maybe I'd try and think of something else. But even so, I think I'd still go for it.
Yeah, and sometimes if it's a screenshot I take very recently, I normally remember but I played multiple drafts that day, so I can't recall 100% if we had a pause here or not, to be honest with you. But yeah, obviously that's a big important part of it as well.
I'm usually of the make them have it mentality. And if they do have it, I wasn't meant to win anyway, probably, because that card would have killed me on my turn. Or on their turn, I'm sorry.
Fair. Alex?
You guys pretty much said everything that needed to be said right there.
All right. John?
Yeah, you guys said most of what I've been thinking already. Like, the pauses are really important here, right? Like, the opponent attacked, so like when they attacked, you should have been able to identify whether they had a fast spell or not. So I think that really informs my decision here. You know, like if they didn't have anything, I would just start the turn in A space, probably like Celtic. But you know, if I sniffed out literally anything here, I like eMoney's kind of cautious approach. I would do that play, except I would tone it down just one unit. I would just get in there with just the one quick draw guy, because that makes it a lethal attack, so they just have to block one. And that way, like, you know, you basically live to anything other than exactly Wind Conjuring, which, kind of like Celtic said, you're gonna I think you die to that anyway, even if you A space here, so that's fine. Yeah, and play the power in case you do have another turn in that case, and you know, somehow get to attack with this 7/7 with 9 power up. That's pretty cool. That'll definitely win next turn if it goes that far.
Yep. Yeah, and that's actually the line I ended up taking. I do remember that much, where I ended up leaving back one of the Caravan Guards, the 3/5s, and swing with everything else. The reason being is I wanted to make sure I attacked with enough where I presented lethal, where they were forced to break blocks to lower their board, and then I left one unit back to block their 7/7 Worm, because I knew I couldn't block the Bane Wolf, and we can't play around Curtain Call, because if they just have it, we just lose. And then obviously Victor's Cry and Conjuring that will do the +4 to the Bane Wolf just kills us, much like everyone's already said, so we can play around that. So it's just a matter of having the Finest Hour where the overwhelm damage wouldn't be enough to kill them, and or having an ambush unit to soak up some extra damage. And if we didn't attack aggressive enough, then they would have had the bigger board to swing back. And so, yeah, I did exactly that, where I left the one Caravan Guard back and then just A space and said, if they got it, they got it. If they don't, well, then, you know, we're in a much better position. So
we're in a much better position of being alive and having won the game, which is a good place to be.
Yep. Yeah. We got very fortunate that, you know, I guess not very fortunate, because the Blur Haze Worm was only a 1/1. So they locked down the 6/6, but it wouldn't have been that big of a difference. So
did they have anything?
I don't remember, to be honest with you. We did win this game, I do know that, but I can't say I remember if they had something here or not.
Yeah, I feel like they didn't have anything. I think I remember seeing this, but
yeah,
I've seen that 2/3 ambush tornado thing so often that's why I would want to go in fully, so that if they suddenly had another blocker, then it wouldn't matter. But that's just my call.
Yep, and that was something I was considering as well. It was tough. The thing is that the fact that our clock was so small, it was like I felt it was a little bit closer. If I had anything in hand, I probably would have been a little more inclined to A space, but I also just didn't want to throw away the game if I could help it because of that. They had so many, a Finest Hour, well, not Valiant Leap because it's double primal, but any kind of pump spell or another blocker that comes into play to soak up a little bit of damage, and we would have just been done skis.
Any unit.
I think it's worth noting that when a lot of times when we're analyzing these plays, and all three of us have agreed that we would go for it, that doesn't mean it's an easy decision.
Right.
Especially the fact that we've been able to talk about it for 15 minutes versus having a 60-second window to decide.
Right.
Yes.
Sweet. But all right, that's our What's the Play for this week. Really do appreciate you two coming on the show and giving your input. Like I said, I felt, even though it was very simple decision on whether to ace base or not. I think there was a lot of layers to it that could potentially change it up, and that's why I brought it on the show. If you guys do have a what's the play, something that you felt had multiple lines that you could take, or something that wasn't as easy, I do encourage you to screenshot it, post it on the Discord, and let us know, and we'll talk about it on this show the following week. Okay, moving right along into our final segment is Constructed Corner, where we identify a deck for Gauntlet, Ladder, tournaments, etc. like that I think is pretty neat and want to share it with the community. And so this week we are bringing up a Better Up his deck. He had this designed using a draft strategy that he enjoyed and wanted to bring it to Constructed, and had it prepped for the ECQ 2 weeks ago, I believe, and it calls it Terrazana Getcha. Yeah, Terrazana Getcha. There you go. First time I said it out loud. I read it a bunch of times, but I didn't bother, or in my head, I never said it out loud. So yeah, Terrazana Getcha by Better Up. Fantastic.
Strong name.
Yep. This deck is, let's see, 21,550 shift stone, so fairly cheap. He does a decent breakdown of it, but pretty much, and it continues to update it. The deck pretty much is just a blitz deck in Skycrag for the most part, capitalizing on Mightweaver giving double damage to a couple units and just pumping the Livid Daylight out of things, but primarily Terrazon Echo. Terrazon Echo is the 1/2 Dinosaur Illusion, 2 Primal. It has Berserk, and then reads, when Terrazon Echo attacks, it gets +1/+1 this turn for each spell you have played this turn. Summon Plunder. So you essentially pump it, you throw a couple of pump spells on it, and then you swing, and then it just gets bigger and bigger as it swings twice, and is capable of 32, 34, I think was one of the highlights I saw it do. It can just do a preposterous amount of damage, as it can grow up to 9, 12 damage with Overwhelm, plus Mightweaver giving it double damage. Let's break down the deck very quickly for you guys. 4 From Within, 4 Levitate, 4 Mischief Yeti, 4 Pyro Knight, 4 Champion of Fury, 4 Flameheart Patroller, 4 Mavloft Huntress, 4 Rampage, 4 Terrazon Echo, 2 Jack Mercenary, 4 Mightweaver, 4 Milos Rebel Bomber, 4 Siege Train, 5 Fire Sigil, 5 Primal Sigil, 4 Fire Symbol, 3 Primal Symbol, 4 Seed of Fury, and 4 Skycrag Silex. And yeah, pretty much the deck just kind of bides the time, gets in there, chip damage with some of the early aggressive, and then waits to get that really big blowout turn with Overwhelm and double damage. From Within doing a lot of work here, not having the justice to transmute it, essentially just using it for the +1 or +2/+1 charge and decay option for 1. But fun card, Better Up drafts this type of archetype and then decided to take it to Constructed, and Climb Ladder with it was ready to take it to the ECQ, but sadly did not play in the ECQ. But you can check that out. Link is down below, of course, in the show notes. And once again, shout out to Better Up for just the great things he does for the show and the community.
Also worth mentioning that with the shiftstone cost, that's not counting that Jack and Milos are both campaign cards, so you do have to account for that.
Shoot, thank you, Celtic. Man, I'm normally good about saying exactly that every week, too. You've been keeping me on my toes. Appreciate you, Celtic. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
But that's going to do it. So, E-Money, man, thank you so much, dude. I absolutely love having you on the show. You're a great person in the community. Very informative. Loved your streams. I know you're taking a break. That's all right. But still see you on Ladder, and hopefully I can avoid you, because I think last time I played you were rank 1. But thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on this show and share your wealth with us. So good luck on the draft championship, my friend.
Thank you, Jedi. And I throw that right back at you, with you just being a positive influence for our community. Love having you, buddy.
Where can people find you at? And thank you, by the way, but where can people find you at now?
You can't really find me online right now. My Discord is still open. But you'd have to go through like the Twitch channel and then join the Discord. But I am still in Discord. I do still check it occasionally.
Okay.
But other than that, I've kind of dialed everything back.
Okay, well then you can find them here on this show probably in a couple of weeks when I have them doing a deep dive into Gauntlet. So be on the lookout for that. Celtic7Guardian, just always been there chatting up the community in the various discords and just being a menace on those draft leaderboards. I know, like you said, you stepped back a little bit, had real life get in the way, and that's totally understandable, but you consistently throw up great numbers, i.e. coming back, dusting some of the dirt off the old card deck collection and just smashing and making it to day 2. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to come on the show. Really do appreciate it. I
love being on these types of podcasts, so I really appreciate you having me. Just a lot of fun to talk and see what other people's lines would be, since I kind of have a bad habit of immediately deciding on something and going for it. So like what play would you make lines are of particular interest to me.
Sweet. Yeah, and we'll definitely get more of those heading your way in the Discords and stuff. Where can people find you at?
Mostly Discord, and I hang out in the EternalJourney Discord, the Farming Eternal Discord. I've been on a couple of a few actually, their podcasts. That was a lot of fun too. And I hang out on Ilian's Discord, where there's a lot of Eternal players as well. I technically have a YouTube and Twitch, but I can't actually use them because my laptop's a piece of garbage. I'll tell you if that ever changes. I'm hoping for a gaming PC someday.
All right, I'll have to get you on this stream with me then to do a draft and whatnot and share your wealth and knowledge with the Twitch community.
I would love to do that.
But once again, to both of you, thank you guys for being on the show. I really do appreciate you guys. You can catch John, myself, and Alex on the YouTubes. Just search up EternalJourney, or on Twitch every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday at twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ. We do mention all the various Discords for the Eternal community. I definitely encourage you to join one or all of them, where we have a ton of people just sharing wealth of knowledge and information and advice, helping people with sealed pools, with draft picks, with deck construction, and just sometimes being that ear that needs to listen to those bad beat stories. So definitely check that out. But all right, guys, that's going to do it for us this week. Tune in to next week, where John and myself are going to be doing our breakdown of the Awakening campaign cards. But until then, as always, happy gaming.
Good luck, E-Money. Bye.
Thanks, Celtic. See everybody later.
Bye.
Good luck, E-Money, and good luck in your draft, everybody.